Yep, bam. And now we're live. Ooh. Live in the studio. Matt, what are you doing? What are you doing over there? Watching you on the camera. Yeah, there it is. Perfect. Wait, no, I need it. I need my chair this high so I can see you over the screen.
Over the monitor.
The last time I'm like 20 minutes in and like and the person I had on was short, so I couldn't see them at all. Terrible. Hey guys, what's up?
Hey.
All right, so we're live in the studio. Team Early as Fuck podcast. We've got, this is, what did I label this as? The fishing episode, Wisconsin fishing. We've got, you're both part of Wilma, right?
That is correct.
The Wisconsin League of Muskie Anglers. And I'm not allowed to eat muskies. They just told me. They actually specifically told me not to eat them.
You can eat them.
Because that's, so we're gonna get into that. I'm excited to get into that. Jake, keep that, what are you doing?
Keep it right there?
Keep that mic by you.
Okay.
Right on.
So we're recording this now. Matt's episode will air 2 weeks? I can't remember. Anyways, this will air a few weeks after that episode. Jake, you're joining us in the studio. So everyone will get Matt's details there. What I always love talking about, especially in the outdoor space, is guest intro and then where you grew up, what was your background in the outdoor space, and then how you specialized in it.
Sure.
Start with there.
Sure. So
name first.
I'm Jake Thompson. I currently reside in the metropolis of Kellner. And I grew up in Beloit, so not quite Illinois, thankfully. But, I grew up there. As far as outdoor activities and such, I did a ton of fishing growing up. That was kind of my passion, going on family vacations up north and getting in some rustic cabin and staying there for a week and just taking the canoe or rowboat out and fishing.
Yeah. Fishing so Matt and I touched on it, but one of my most powerful fishing memories is being out on the ice. I'm at the ice shack. My dad had to go back for something. I'm stuck in my snowsuit. I can't get out of it. I end up pissing myself. And my dad sits. I'm in the ice shack the rest of the day, and my dad's like extra gear that's way too big, so I can't move. And I just slay perch, and that's like my best memory of fishing is nice. That day slaying perch. For yourself, any good piss pants stories, or
I don't
maybe
have
more
any
specifically
stories.
Fishing stories?
One of the there was a time I fell off the dock fishing right before we were leaving from the end of vacation. So,
fell off, or your dad threw you?
No, my brother I think kind of pushed me.
Yeah, okay, that makes
and
more sense.
Blamed it on I was trying to get a fish, or I don't know. It was young, but it's one of those things that kind of, those little...
You probably shouldn't have been on the dock anyways.
This is probably true, yes. We were packing up. We don't need to be on the dock, and yeah. But it's some
perspective.
That was the Matt Lazar. I was going to say that was the dad's perspective. The hell were you doing on the dock?
I already told you. Yeah, but yeah, it's one of those great sibling stories that I'm kind of at the point in my life now where I sit around with I have two younger siblings, so a middle brother and a younger sister, and it's interesting to sit around with two adult siblings now and talk about how things used to be and what we did when no one was around.
Yeah.
And, just kind of sharing stories that way. It's a unique interaction that's it's fun.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So, getting back to fishing stories and stuff. It would be one of those deals where I'd get done with school and I'd be grabbing a rod and running down to the river and fish until I had to be home, or I was in sports, so once basketball season started, I really wasn't doing much fishing then, but I didn't do much hunting. I know both of you guys are big hunters. Mm-hmm. I went out a few times with my dad deer hunting, but it just didn't stick with me as much as fishing did. And
I feel like deer hunting is just rifle season.
yeah,
Especially, I think we all kind of grew up in that age where it was just baiting, right? So like, you're a kid, dad's like, we're going deer hunting. There's a pile of bait. Freeze your ass off. Shut the hell up. And then they wonder like, I don't know why I didn't want to go back out. Like, I think back, and that was we did rabbit hunting and small game with the beagles, and that I loved the most, which is why once I got out of school, I wanted a gun dog and blah 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 blah. But I think back about like deer hunting, like you're saying, like you go out a few times, you're like, fishing, you're moving around, you're in a boat, the possibilities are endless. It's not fucking.
I think you grew up more immersed in the hunting,
Yeah.
than a lot of people did, though.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
That was like, yeah. My dad's, yeah.
Because it was a lot easier for us to go out. We couldn't just go out and hunt by ourselves because you just can't do, so it was easier to grab a rod and go fishing.
Yeah, also true.
Yeah.
and the like two buddies that I hung out with, and the one that's still a really good friend of mine now. That's before we had licenses. That's what we would do. We'd
There's a lot of parallels here to the.
We'd grab a rod and we'd both meet each other down at the river, and now we're gonna just fish the river for the afternoon or whatever. So yeah,
I like it.
yeah.
Was there an 8 Mile moment, or like a point where you're like, fuck yeah, let's do this for a living? Or
Yeah, there was actually, and it was. I would watch In Fisherman and Al and Ron Linder and all these fishing
I
shows
gotta
that
look
were on
this up.
TV.
I have no idea what this is.
And
Oh my gosh, they're the best.
I always, as much as I had this passion for fishing, but I wanted to be able to do something that dealt with fish. And one day my mom was like, "Well, let's look up the DNR service center and go see if there's someone around here you can talk to." And I actually went and talked to. Remember going down to one of the offices on Lake Koshkonong and talking to the biologist there, and just kind of asking him what he does, and he kind of gave me the whole spiel on what his job looks like and what it entails. And I think that was kind of the turning point for me, where I was like, you know what, I think this might be what I really want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I ended up writing a letter to Al Linder, and just saying, hey, I watch your show. I want to do something in fisheries. And he's actually the one that, in his response, had said, you know what, go to the schools that have fisheries as an option. Look into that, because I think that'll be kind of your way into this, is that.
You talked to Al Linder
In a letter.
That's awesome.
That is awesome.
But
Well, a letter's even more impressive. Like,
Yeah.
he had to fucking take time to write a letter.
yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
back then.
Back then, that's all you could do.
That was the only option.
Would there have been like AOL Instant Messenger, anything like that?
No.
That's like, I'm thinking back.
That didn't exist. Yeah.
And I was a kid.
None of that was there. It was letter. That was the only option.
Letters, baby.
Yeah.
So I like it.
Stamp.
Now, do you have kids? Anything?
Yes.
What
Yep.
does that look like? The outdoor space, fishing. What does that look like now for them? How do you expose it to them? Share it with them?
So we have a blended family, so 3 boys and 2 girls, and the way it looks, or the easiest way with the least amount of chaos, is to kind of. I'm serious.
Oh,
100%.
I'm thinking like, so I'm thinking of like a stock aluminum, but like your classic aluminum fishing boat, right? And then I'm like, do they make like a longer version, like how they extend minivans for bigger? And then I'm like, how do you reach the kid to like slap them when they're doing something wrong? Like, we were
That's
always
what
within reach of
8-foot
my
rods are for. So the easiest way is to do it individually.
Okay.
So once summer gets here and we got the boat out, then we just go in order. All right. So tonight's your night, Adam. All right. Next time we go out, Ashton, it's your turn.
Yeah.
Grace, you get to go. So that's the easiest way.
Yeah.
You get some one-on-one.
Yep.
And you can control things a lot easier.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what works for us. Is
I like it
that way. So
there were a few times my dad would take. So I'm the oldest since my sister and my brother, and there were a few times he would take all three of us fishing, and I look back at that now. I'm like, how did he not drown one of us? And he didn't do any fishing because at any given point, one of us had a line snagged or tangled or a hook stuck in us somewhere.
Yep. That's what I think when I think back on our family vacations. And,
Yeah.
My mom and dad and 3 kids in this 14-foot boat. Like, how were there not more trips to the hospital for hooks in the head?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, if one question before I get into philosophy, if one of them is like, nah, Dad, I don't want to. I'm not interested tonight. Is there like a raffle for that spot?
No, it just goes on in the next
bribery.
Whoever next.
Oh, okay.
In the line.
All right.
Yeah.
So, with 5 kids, what's the age gap?
The oldest will be 15 in May, and the youngest is 8.
Oh wow. Different philosophies for each of them, like based on their interest level. What does that look like?
Yeah. So, the oldest 2, when we go, they're pretty much wanting to go muskie fishing. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of my passion. When I can't muskie fish, I'm walleye fishing, and when I'm ice fishing, I'm walleye fishing. So open water. If muskie season is open, I'm going to be muskie fishing for the most part. So the older 2 will usually want to muskie fish, and then it kind of ratchets back to bluegills or maybe some bass fishing with the younger ones, mm-hmm. just to action stuff. So
yeah, fair enough. I like it. Matt, you got anything to add? Any questions you want to throw towards Jake? All right,
soaking it all in.
So let's you touched. I know Matt's a huge muskie guy, walleye, that kind of thing. I know you are, and so that's why I wanted to get the 2 of you, your backgrounds, the information you know. I want to touch on the idea of sport fishing because as someone who's more of like a subsistence hunter, and that's why I like fish. If I'm going fishing, I want to eat whatever the hell it is I'm fishing for, even if it's bait, like Matt always says. He doesn't eat bait.
I don't need smell. Keep your smell.
So what's fascinating to me is, so in the hunting world, everybody fucking hates predators, right? Damn the wolves, the coyotes, the bears. It's all about the game species you can eat. Fishing is like the reverse of that, right? You're fishing, is anything eating muskies besides other muskies?
Well, young ones, but everybody hates muskies, though, generally speaking.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say everybody, but like there's always a large movement. Like it's the same. You look at it as a muskie like a wolf, right?
Yeah, so that's where I'm getting at is
the
muskie guys, want more muskies, bigger muskies. Then where's the walleye in the food chain?
Well, right at the top.
Yeah. So you've got the walleye guys, right? They want more of that fish, which may or may not be like leading to like the perch or the smelt shortages this year because of the amount of walleye in some lakes. You could make a case for.
Jake would speak better to that. But
yeah. And then you've got like pike. Where do bass fit on the food chain?
They eat everything.
Yeah. So
not a lot of people keep bass to eat anymore, though.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So you've got these different camps, and it happens in the upland woods, right?
Yeah.
There's like grouse guys, there's woodcock guys, there's pheasant guys.
Then there's prairie chicken guys.
Then there's prairie chicken guys. And then with fishing, you've got, these muskies, walleye, bass, and those are all predators in the water, right? And we want to keep those. And yes, no one's eating them. So to me, it's interesting the reversal that happens out on the water.
Yeah.
I want let's dive in. Let's elaborate. Maybe the history of sport fishing, the idea behind, like where we're at conservation with those fish. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I want to learn more about that stuff.
The idea or the
let's start with
bass.
bass.
Would probably be the easiest from like the 80s.
Yeah.
Because that was really the first one that they really started with.
Yeah, so bass were definitely the first ones that were, catch and release. It dominated. Like, it was very taboo then to keep a bass. And it's still that way today, but it's more species specific almost to the point where you should be, harvesting every largemouth you catch. There's a lot of hate towards largemouth right now, but
Here,
yeah,
down south, completely different.
that's true. So that's that's what's crazy is sport fishing. The unwritten rules of sport fishing or the ethics of sports fishing kind of vary regionally or state to state.
Yeah. So let's just stick with Wisconsin.
In Wisconsin for bass,
Yeah.
pretty much, especially if you go up north, a lot of people are gonna be whacking largemouth.
Not smallmouth.
Not smallmouth though. Free the fighter
yeah.
and release the largemouth to the grease, I guess.
Okay.
So, and that's a lot to do with just recent studies that people are finding that they're blaming bass for walleye declines, which may or may not be linked to that. There's a lot of different factors that are going on with walleye recruitment and stuff like that. It's a tough time to be.
Everybody's got their own fish that they want to protect. Everybody's got a club. Everybody wants to protect that fish.
So, exactly, because in the I'm going to constantly kind of compare it to the hunting world because that's the one I'm more familiar with. But there's this idea of healthy forests that's getting thrown around a lot when it comes to upland hunting, deer hunting, hunting conservation. And what they're talking about is like early successional forests, right? And keeping that in perpetuity. Like we need to, every 60, 80 years, let's log it, refresh it, because
burn it.
Healthy forest, quote unquote. But it's like, that's for northern Wisconsin. If you look at like historical woods, it'd be wind. Like wind would knock over some trees, a tornado would come through. That's what would restart that cycle. So it's, if you want to look at it from an actual conservation standpoint, like we need to take this much bigger approach than what we have been doing, and we can't just look at game species as the only idea of conservation.
You have to look at the whole picture.
Yeah, and so I'm super curious from a water standpoint, like because you and I were talking before the podcast about fish habitat. So, and to me, I'm trying to like look at that as like the healthy forest conversation. Like what is good from a biodiversity standpoint in the rivers or the lakes, and maybe what have we lost because of this push for more of the sport fishing species?
I don't know if a push towards more sport fishing has changed the habitat aspect. A lot of that comes back to just land use and shoreline development. And what's a natural shoreline versus a lake that's surrounded by houses with lawns up to the edge of the lake. That changes the habitat around the lake a lot more than anything else. And going through drought years or high water years, that changes things quite a bit too. So just seasonal fluctuations in rainfall and air temperatures, like that changes a lot of stuff. 10 years of drought or low water, that can drop a lake,
which recently just happened.
Which we're just now coming out of that. That can change the makeup of a lake significantly just by eliminating shoreline habitat that fish use to spawn on. And so that can do more damage than harvesting or like sport fishing and selecting a specific species that you're going to try and harvest or not harvest.
Okay. When it comes to these, like you were talking about the lake development, I know it's going to be like regionally specific to what's on the shoreline, but maybe pick a lake that you're familiar with and then maybe go through what would traditionally be like edge habitat, and then what is development doing to it, because that's something we're seeing too now in like rural America, right, where traditionally it would have been forest or native prairie, and it was logged, attempted to farm, that didn't go so well. Now they're just filling it in with more dirt and they're selling it for development, right? And people are building these houses and then they're wondering why is my house flood every year? Or so I guess what does that look like from a lake standpoint or even a river standpoint for natural versus developed?
Oh, you don't even have to pick a specific lake. You can just think of any lake and picture what a natural shoreline would look like. A natural shoreline would have trees in the water that have fallen in that would provide woody habitat and cover for fish. And there would be rocks and boulders in some areas if that region of the state had that in their geology. Or maybe there's not like around here there's a ton of sand, but other areas there might not be a ton of sand, so you'd be not having that type of habitat, which may or may not be good. But then when you think of lakes that are developed, most people when they buy a place on a lake, they want to be able to do one thing, and that's swim right in front of their house. So if there's trees in the water right in front of their place, well, we're going to take those on. And we don't want to have to step on rocks or weeds when we go swimming, so we're going to do stuff to eliminate the rocks and weeds, and we want sand there. So that, losing those different types of habitat, the woody debris, the weeds, the rocks, that's a huge loss to a lake. Especially, if it's just one house on a lake, that's one thing. But now when you have an entire shoreline that everybody wants to do this, now you're eliminating, tons of habitat that is used not only for, young a year protection and cover, but for spawning. And so
it's so fascinating, like the level to which we've domesticated ourselves, and then we want to domesticate.
And then you want it to be wild then. You're like, why can't it?
One of the more recent things I've seen is like you're talking about like rocks in the water. People don't want to step on that. One of the like bougie fads now for like plantar fasciitis treatment is like a board with rocks in it, and you like have it. They're like put into this like plaster cast, and you like walk on it in your house. And I'm like, that's like the AirPods headband, right? That connect the AirPods together. So no, it's wait.
But now you throw in that loss of habitat and people with their
slide
lawns.
That mic over.
You throw in that with fertilizer then. People, to me, that's the one thing that I always see is people with fertilizer. Then you have runoff, and that just changes everything. Again, in a whole different way by accelerating weed growth, or you throw in invasive species into that mix like milfoil, which then grabs that it explodes, and all of a sudden you have McDill Pond, which is just full of weeds.
So like the lily pads everywhere that like grow up, are those native?
Okay. Yeah, those are native.
And then those proliferate with exposure to fertilizers or anything like that?
Yes and no. The one thing that the fertilizer is doing is actually putting more nutrients into the water, which it's mainly what you see come from that is algae blooms. So that's the main thing that
freak me out.
That you're going to see from that. The nutrient loading and increased nutrients will increase plant growth, but it also, there's other things that it's going to do besides just increase plant growth. So.
What about boats in lakes? What is that doing, or rivers? Like, what's that doing to the lake shores? Like big motors, people jet skiing around.
Well, increased wave action that disturbs the shoreline. That's going to rip up. If there's weed beds, the weeds don't like to be constantly pummeled with 3-foot rollers from wake boats and stuff. So that's going to loosen up the roots of those weeds. You're going to lose that. It stirs up the sediment and stuff along the shoreline, so that increases turbidity, and increased turbidity. So now your lake's not going to be as clean. That's also reintroducing sediments and nutrients that were in the sediment into the water column, which now are available for algae and other stuff to feed upon. But
what are you gonna do about it?
I'm just it's kind of like the toxic non-toxic thing going on right now in the outdoor space and hunting and fishing, right? Like we understand the effects lead has in an animal, right? You eat lead, it's not going to go well for you if you eat enough of it and it's in your body for long enough. And how do you police that? Like, do you make it illegal for everyone? Do you make it legal? Like, where does that make? So it's more on the individual to just understand the repercussions of what you're doing to the environment and proceed. Like, what are you comfortable doing? Drawing that line for people. So I guess it's more of just having this conversation, because I don't think everyone understands.
I guarantee you, not everyone understands.
Yeah. Well, exactly. So that's the problem, right?
That's exactly the problem.
Everybody wants that lakeside property, right? So, and then that comes back to like public access, right? Like the water is available to everyone, but if you can't get to the water because it's completely developed around it, like I know that's an issue with some lakes up north. That's definitely something that's happening more and more
in other states than here. And let's keep it in those other states.
Yeah. And then because you got to monitor those other states, right? Because the organizations in charge of cutting off public access out there, Wisconsin has the same version, and they're taking notes.
Exactly.
They're watching film.
Yep.
They're watching the film, and they're like, "Oh, that worked over there. Okay, yeah,
let's $38 doing that. Let's do that."
Kohler Sand Dunes is like a perfect example there. Like the golf course is like, hey, we're gonna buy this. Here's a check. Go, whatever you want to do, but we're gonna fuck this up, and it's never gonna be the same. But here's a check. So for me, it's having this conversation because most of the people listening to this podcast like outdoor recreation, health, fitness. They're out there doing these things, and so, myself included. I'm very ignorant of the effect of those actions. Like a lot of people that don't hunt, fish, or trap, they're like, well, I'm a non-consumptive user of the outdoors. Like, that doesn't exist. You being there, you're consuming something, you're impacting something. Out west, what was it the last couple of years? Like photographers, people on the trails in the winter, like that's leading to an increase in mortality in some of these species, because when they should be yarded up, not being bothered,
spreading them out.
Yeah, they're constantly breaking them up, constantly stopping them from feeding. They're running away from people, and that's just from people taking pictures.
Did you see that they just had Colorado had their first shed hunting season this year?
Yeah, places out west are creating.
You have to get a license.
Yeah.
To shed hunt now.
Yeah, really? I forget what other states have that already, because people would drive around in these areas and they would spook deer to get them to drop their antlers.
Yeah. Like
people were doing that. They'd be like, oh, that buck lost an antler.
Yeah. This is why we have rules. Yeah.
This is why we have to. That's why
we can't have nice things.
And this is why we can't have nice things.
This is exactly what I'm getting at. Is the idea of, because people do dumb shit like that, and then we have to police them with like I really have to make this a rule. Yeah. Like, don't chase the deer that's losing its antlers. So from a water standpoint, what, if any, what are some things landowners can do or just general users can do to, I don't know, maybe slow this, help prevent it? Is that even a thing right now with where we're at with?
Yeah, there's different organizations that are trying to work with landowners to, if nothing else, just educate and then try and get some sort of a buffer between the lake and their property. If you can get some sort of a buffer that's natural habitat, you can still have your green lawn and it can look all pretty. But if you can have that buffer that's going to kind of filter out and block some of the stuff from running down into the lake, that makes a huge difference. Leaving part of your shoreline as natural habitat instead of making it all a beach, that goes a long way too. So there's different types of tree drops that you can do. If you work with get a permit from the state, you can do a tree drop on your property. And there's lakes around here where the lake associations are getting together, and McDill would be an example of this, where several landowners on the lake got together and said, you know what, I'd be willing to have a tree drop done on my property to put some woody habitat into the lake. And so then there's several spots on the Causeway is one of them where they put tree drops where they just redid the road there. but then
oh yeah, they did.
Different areas in the lake are going to have tree drops as well to increase. And so a lot of it's just, not peer pressure, but hey, you know what? I'm doing it. Why don't you do that, man? Mm-hmm. You got a house just down from me. Why don't you do that?
Yeah.
And just kind of spreading information that way.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest thing is, just getting that one person, I think, that's conservation minded, that everyone on the lake kind of respects and looks towards, and use my property as an example. Look how good it does for me. How about you?
Mm-hmm.
People like results.
Yeah, definitely.
But not everyone wants to be the first one to do it.
Yeah.
They'd rather jump on the train after it's going instead of be the one leading the train.
Yeah, get pushing it to get it started.
Yep.
So So let's talk muskie next. I think that's right. We touched on a little bit on bass, a little bit on walleye. The muskie. Native, non-native. What's the background history of the muskie in Wisconsin?
Muskies are native to the state. They're actually the state fish. They've been here. They're mainly, or back before we got here, they were mainly a riverine species, but they were in lakes as well.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, they've been here just as long as, or longer than we have.
Yeah.
And muskie, the sport fishing of muskie has definitely changed over the last 30, 40 years. It's the amount of users
30 years, yeah.
Yeah, the amount of users is just
So with so like the record books for big game, right? Those were created like during post-market hunting, because they're like, we don't know if these are even going to be around much longer. Like we've hunted them to the point where they're almost extinct basically in these areas. We've almost extirpated them. In the world of sport fishing, like record keeping, that kind of thing, how did that all kind of come around? Or are the records because of market fishing? Like it got to the point where they were just fishing so many of them, they didn't know for sure if they'd be around. Were muskie ever fished for consumption?
Came from the tourism industry.
Yeah, I think they were fished for consumption. Like back in the day, you'd see old pictures of people with like huge stringers of muskies, because they'd go out and they were whacking everyone they caught and eating them.
Nice.
But to get to the record aspect of it, I think that really started back when you would get paid or win some money for getting a record, and so that was kind of the reward for catching a big one, which then led into the possibility of people cheating.
It's a Pandora's box when you open that one,
right? Exactly. Were they like farming, growing their own, like at home, so it'd be bigger, or what?
No.
Get into the Louis spray,
How are they cheating?
So they're actually going out and fishing for these fish, and then the record is based on weight, and so then they're putting stuff in the fish after they've caught it and taking it back to the grocery store or post office to have it
weighed,
certified, and
filling them full of sand or lead.
Lead sinkers making it.
That's what they did. But there was two guys that kept going back and forth.
Yeah.
On the Chippewa flowage.
Yeah.
Louis Spray and Cal
Johnson. Yeah.
And so like these records had been sitting forever, and then all of a sudden these two guys start breaking records, like alternating for a few years in a row, right?
Well, it's like home runs in baseball. Man, these guys are the biggest human beings we've ever seen. Just smashing.
How does this all happen in a couple of years? Yeah.
Fair enough.
So there's a lot of controversy surrounding the modern day world record. So
yeah, for sure. Does muskie fishing have? So there's the method, right, in hunting, like where there's people who are like, you got to make it harder, you got to make it more challenging in this way or that. Is muskie? Is there like fly fishing in muskie? Yep. Is there?
Yeah.
Okay. What is that?
There's fly fishing. There's you got your casters.
Okay.
You got your trollers. So yeah, there's different ways to do it. The record is based on just hook and line.
Hook and line.
So I'm sure there's a fly fishing.
But even within that, you have the casters look down on the trollers, and then the fly fishing look down on everybody. So there's always it's weird.
Who's the most elitist?
It's
God, right. Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
We just created such a weird system. What are there in the fishing world? What do conservation organizations look like? I know there's like Trout Unlimited.
There's a lot of them. Yeah. I mean, Walleyes for Tomorrow,
and they're all for. Is it, what do they call? Is it game species for fishing? What is it called? Like consumable, like what people would traditionally fish for. There's not someone out there like, no, I'm for all fish. Like, we want biodiversity.
I don't know if there isn't like everybody picked Trout Unlimited.
Would Ike Walton League be? I
mean, there's a lot of outdoors groups that do things as a broad-based thing. Like locally, there'd be I'm trying to think of the fishing club. They just put in the boat landings.
Prime Water
Anglers. They're kind of an all-inclusive club.
So that's what I was getting. Is there anything that brings all anglers together? Man, the silence.
I think. I mean, right? if you're a fisherman, like you talk fishing, you know, like I think that as far as like a group setting, probably not. But I mean, like if you're just sitting around talking at a bar and some guy fishes and you fish, you're probably going to talk about fishing.
Yeah.
I don't think that it really matters if that guy's, you know, a pan fisherman or whatever, you know. And I'm a muskie guy. I mean, you'd probably get in an argument at some point. But
has there ever been a brawl at Taps and Tackle yet?
Not yet. Maybe today's the day. Everybody's pretty level.
Now that we've kind of given everyone lists, because people are saying, wait, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Especially because I'm trying to get more people to connect like fitness and outdoor recreation, and then also this other world of hunting, angling, trapping, like how they're all interconnected, because a lot of people don't see that. And just getting everyone kind of exposure to these other worlds, like we're all using this thing, we're enjoying this thing for the same reasons, you know, be it solitude, family time, skill acquisition, just like some deep-seated desire to be out there, right? Like that's, at the end of the day, everyone would agree on that. From the person who's totally against hunting, trapping, fishing, to the person who loves all of those things. Like, it's just this, we all have this desire to be out there. So with that, and we've kind of established all these micro tribes, for you guys, let's dive into like what draws you, what gets you out there. I mean, for what you do for work, and then the angling side of it, bringing your kids out there. What groups you choose to be a part of? What does that look like? To Jake, and then we'll go to Matt.
What groups do?
Yeah, so based off of what we've talked about, like from the family, why you love fishing, being outdoors. How do you go about selecting the groups you're a part of?
Mainly,
other than Matt being handsome.
The groups that I'm a part of are pretty much just committed to enhancing the resource that I'm passionate about. Mm-hmm. So muskie clubs, muskie clubs that are intentional and focused on doing more than just let's get together and fish. Let's have a purpose and do stuff to enhance.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I look at as far as where am I going to spend my time with these people, or who do I want to spend my time with?
Yeah.
So I'm not really a member of too many clubs.
Yeah.
Mainly because I don't have much time. Mm-hmm. 5 kids and a job. And
yeah, that'll keep you busy.
That keeps you pretty busy. So you got to kind of pick and choose where you're going to go and how you're going to spend it. So,
and with these, and like you said, I'm sure you both know people as well. Like they're in every species group. They pay their membership, but that's it. They're like, just more game species, more blah 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 blah. And I was like that for a time, and then I realized, like, no, if I'm going to be a part of these organizations, like, I actually want to dive into the science behind what they're saying, because you realize, like, everyone has an agenda, even in the world of conservation and environmentalism, right? Like, you see it like, oh shit, they all have an agenda. So actually understanding the science behind it and what's going on has been something a passion of mine. So with the groups you're in, Jake, is the investment financially, and then are you, like, what does your time investment look like in a lot of these organizations?
Right now it's not a ton, but that's another thing that kind of helps me pick and choose is just their activity level. Like how active are they with things? There's some clubs where it's just show up and pay your dues and that's it. Yeah. But then other clubs that are very active as far as raising money to do things, or helping support causes that are going on the river, or with certain species and stuff like that. And that's like, I kind of justify the not being a part of every club by what I do for my job on a daily basis, because I do a lot that way.
Oh, no, so, for sure.
Like So
you do a lot of speaking.
Yeah, I was just I wanted to get to that's where I was going with it. So the outreach part of what you do, because we've talked before, like it's a non-traditional element of what it is you're doing. So what is kind of your goal, your philosophy for that?
To encourage and educate, like Matt said, like I do a ton of different talks, or I give a ton of different talks, and it's all based on where I'm talking at. Am I at an elementary school talking about sturgeon, or am I at a high school talking about my job, or am I at a muskie club talking about recent work that we've done? Yeah. So it's all based on who I'm talking to. It's based on the audience. Yeah. But then the other aspect, and when I first started doing, like, the opportunity came up for me to start doing talks and doing it consistently, the big thing I was really wanting to get out of it was just interacting with people and kind of just building a relationship with people. Yeah. So that it wasn't so standoffish when someone would see us out in the field that, like, let's get pissed.
Fuck those guys.
Yes. Yeah. So just kind of changing the perception of us. And it, the last 10, 15 years, like, that's been my goal, is to do that. And I feel like I
love it.
At least from my view, it's helped some, which is encouraging. So
hell yeah,
it's helped a lot.
Definitely. I love what you're talking about, from limiting the amount of groups you're in, because you're vested in the impact they're making, and definitely the organization you work for, like, 100% agree, because that's been something I've looked at from all of the organizations I'm a part of, from the outdoor space to, like, community spaces. Like, there's so many of them that rah, we raised this much money. What the hell did you do with it? Like, I want to see you measuring impact. Like, what was changed? Don't just repeat the mission statement and then, this is how much money we raised, but everything stayed the same. Like, so even from a community level to hunting, fishing, angling, outdoor rec level, I've become way more vested in who's actually like pushing the envelope, having the uncomfortable conversations with industry, with private landowners. And you laugh because exactly. Those are the groups I want to stand behind, invest in, or people power, really, because like you're talking about, making those relationships, having these conversations with people, that's how we change it. If we can ripple out from there, that's how we're gonna, affect change, not just writing checks and then celebrating, oh, we raised this much money. Like it's getting people to become aware of like how awesome like what we have available to us, our resources from both an animal and an environmental standpoint, plant species, blah 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 blah. Like what we have is amazing, and it needs to be, for it to last, we need everyone to realize that and see where they can and how they use it, how they can modify it. I'm done. I'm off my soapbox.
You're great. It's great.
Let's send it over to Matt. So Matt, I'm back on my soapbox. Fuck.
I love your soapbox.
God, it's reinforced.
Yes.
Hefty, as my grandma would call it, or husky.
Husky.
There
it is.
Matt, you have a, like we talked about on the last podcast, a community center, right? You've got a wide variety of people coming in through your doors, especially now with Taps and Tackle.
Yep.
So the groups, and you're a public figure, let's say. You're a public figure, right? All right?
All right.
I'm going to say it. You don't have to agree.
That. All right.
But I'm going to say it. So the groups you support, or the things you're a part of, a lot more people see. Jake, would you agree? Right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
And yeah, Matt's more of a public figure than he wants to give himself.
Exactly. So knowing that you've got this pressure as a public figure, as a leader.
Well, now I do. I didn't 10 minutes ago.
How do you?
How am I gonna sleep tonight?
Yeah, right. I know. Don't worry. I'll pop the bubble before you leave. So you fit through
Bring
the door.
me back down to earth.
What are your thoughts about all these like really random ass questions I've been asking Jake that I think
they're great questions and they need to be asked, and people need to be made aware of a lot of this.
So how do you go about deciding what organizations you're going to be a part of or not part of? Or
I just start them, I guess. So
yeah. Did you start Wilma?
Yeah. Well, right. me and two friends did. Yeah.
All right. Go on. Why did you?
It's probably not as what you're looking for, but we started it because we had a lot of muskie fishing gear and we weren't using it.
Yeah.
And then we said if we're going to have this stuff, we need to go use it. So it kind of forced us to go out and fish for muskies one day a week during the summer. And then it kind of just morphed into, we could raise some money doing this. Let's see what good we can do with it. And that's just grown over the years. So why did you have all of this? And I'm not going into this with like this is the answer I want, Matt, you're going to give it to me. I'm just curious. I'm generally curious. And getting the word out about more of this outdoor recreation space was how we further this conversation. So why'd you have all the gear? I was always interested. I mean, you grow up fishing and you have an encounter with a top predator like a muskie or something like that. It's a different feeling, I guess, than catching a bluegill or a bass or something like that. And so you kind of get, I don't know, they call it the bug. I guess it'd probably be kind of a bug, and you just start buying a few things. You're like, maybe I can catch one of those. It's like an elusive type of thing.
And Pittman Robertson, that goes on to fishing stuff, correct, too, right? The tax for the outdoor stuff?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, you're doing good work. It's like, you're helping fund conservation.
They're trying, yeah. They're trying.
Just like when hunters always talk about that for, like, guns and ammo. I'm like, our buddies that go out and just shoot, they don't even hunt. I'm like, they're putting in way more. That's
a trap club,
yeah. I think about even now. Yeah, I'm just shooting trap once a week. I think about my buddies that go out with like 5 different guns, and I'm like, they're paying for conservation.
Yep.
But so going back to Wilma, you're getting, you're kind of like. To me, it's like an accountability buddy for like the gym. You're like, well, we bought the workout shoes, we got the shorts.
That's kind of what it was. Is we got everything. Let's just go do it. And then because people liked what we were doing, and
everyone in the group, adult, kids, family type stuff. Yeah, for the most part.
For the most part, I don't think we've really had many kids in it. It's more of an adult based thing, but it's a kind of a younger, that 18 to well, I guess now 40 some odd range, but and there's a few older gentlemen in it as well that still get out every now and then, but it's more of a relaxed scenario where you don't have to go every night. You don't have to check in. You don't have to, we're there to do one thing. That's get people on the water and have a good time doing it.
Exactly.
Not get angry with a lot of people, and then raise some money to do some sciencey stuff with it. So
fucking love it, man. You gave me the answer I wanted. So to me, so the more I've heard about it at Taps and Tackle, it was like we all get crazy busy, right? And everyone in this group loves the outdoors, but had it not been for the forming of this group, everyone would just keep saying like, "Oh, I'm too busy. I love going out there."
It makes you go.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it's league.
You prioritize it, so people, they're like, "Fuck, I gotta get out there." I want to go hang out. It's like that's how we trick people and come to the gym.
Exactly.
Right? We make it a community. We make it a league, and then
make them feel welcome.
Yeah, they keep showing up, and they're like, "I fucking love this." Whereas if left to your own devices, you'd
sit at home and eat Cheetos and watch TV.
You'd make up a whole excuse for reasons not to go out there. And now you're making it a priority for people to get back outside, doing the things they love, being out on the water, do a bit of fishing, hanging out with friends, hanging out with their community. And that's a huge part of this conversation of like health wellness, right? Is getting people to feel like they're involved, they're included, because a lot of the times we lose that in the busyness, the craziness of our lives. So what are some of the sciencey things you're doing?
Well, I'm glad you asked that. So what has happened over the course of the past few years is basically we always look to the DNR for guidance. We say, what can we do as a club?
Can I interrupt you?
Yeah.
Goddamn DNR.
Yeah, there you go.
I say that in jest because I love the DNR. I grew up in a northern Wisconsin hunting camp where if it wasn't the wolves or the indigenous people, which I'm also having someone come on, or a couple of people come on to the podcast to talk about that, which I can't wait for.
Yeah.
Because that's what I grew up in, right?
It's like it's
racist white northern Wisconsin. And the DNR.
We always joke about the wolves eating all our walleyes.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to ask you, is there a PETA equivalent for muskies? Like, don't you fish for those muskies?
Yeah, PETA.
do they care about muskies?
They fish, yeah.
Oh, nice.
They have a whole bunch. They have a lot of campaigns like fishing. Fish feel pain. They have a whole campaign.
Well, I mean, everything feels pain, right? Like you.
Pretty sure fish don't, but
they've got it. They'll feel pain, like
just a little bit.
They have to. Like everything has some form. It might not feel pain.
It's all nerve endings. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, like the research they've done with like plants, you go to a tree with like a caterpillar, the sound of a caterpillar eating it, and the tree releases a defense mechanism. To me, that's like the same thing I would do if something like bit me and I punched it in the face. Like it's all the same. The thing we just, so many people draw their line, right? Like I've had this conversation with vegetarians and vegans when they talk about, I'll be like, plants feel. No, they don't. They don't have a central nervous system. I'm like, well, now you're just being an elitist. Yeah. You think the only way to experience this planet, this life, this journey is through a central nervous system. Yeah. I'm like, you're an asshole. Like you're not just like
straight up,
dude.
build,
I'll attack all of them.
Fire.
That's right.
I love it.
Everything is connected. Everything like has a way to experience. Like I don't fucking like that. Like that's just a real thing. But anyways, off my soapbox. Going sciencey shit. Goddamn DNR.
So we started with the help of the DNR putting what's called a pit tag into the muskies that we were stocking 6 years ago now. And it's basically the same. What I'm to understand, it's the same type of chip that you would put in a dog, correct? Like when you get your dog chipped, and so they're identified. It identifies each fish. We know how big that fish was, exactly how old that fish was, where it was stocked, who stocked it, and then the DNR can then get data off of those fish during recaptures later on in that fish's life.
Nice.
Fast forward to now, where we have since transition, the DNR is doing most of the stocking, or all of the stocking now. We are trying to provide the actual tags to the DNR where they can put them in the fish in a controlled environment, and do more of them at a time, and then they can do a lot more checking to make sure the tag stayed in, the fish didn't die, all sorts of stuff. Our responsibility now has become to find the fish. As a club, we go out fishing every Tuesday and Wednesday. Our club has purchased what are called the pit tag readers. So I think we have like 20 now. And so those are out with people that are fishing during the week. And when they catch fish, they scan the fish. We have a little log where you can record if that fish has a pit tag. And that data, I think, will help the DNR out a ton in the future. That's our main focus right now, is getting data.
Nice.
Because we have a lot more people on the water than you guys would you have different methods of doing it, but we're out there a lot more. So
yeah.
They just don't have the manpower to do that. So
we mentioned PETA, so let's go down that rabbit hole.
We'll pass the mic then.
Catch and release. Has research been done, like how that impacts fish, mortality rates, anything like that?
Yeah, there's been studies that look at mortality rates after being hooked and released, and for the most part, it depends on what time of year you're fishing for them. The cooler the water, the faster they are to recover.
Yeah.
During the summer, the water temperatures are warmer, so it's more stress on the fish.
Yeah.
But it also deals a lot with handling time.
Yeah.
And how long you play the fish.
Yep.
How long you keep it out of the water.
Yeah.
And that's the thing with these muskie clubs and the guys that fish them. That's one thing that they're very high upon is, being ethical with these fish and quick to release them.
Yeah.
And, not throwing them on the bank.
I'm picturing you guys like combine style, like tested. They're like, time, go, and you gotta,
exactly like
yeah.
that.
There's something,
and that's like you've lost your chip reader. It's going to the next guy.
No.
That's like you can work your way back up, but
it still happens.
It's
yeah. There's a lot of guys that are really strict about that stuff, and even to the point where during the summer they don't even take them out of the net.
Or they won't even go.
Or they won't go.
Water gets too warm, they won't go.
Yeah, I like it. So with this, the chip, I keep wanting to say banding, but that's because bird hunting and whatnot. But
just say tagging.
Tagging. There you go. So like Wisconsin bird tagging, there's like one person that can certify like everyone underneath them in the state, and so they're in charge of like that program. And that program is kind of, it's like pretty weak here right now in Wisconsin.
I think it's maybe not a bad idea.
But is there anything like that for fish tagging?
Yes and no. You have to have so in order for someone to be able to tag muskies, they, at least around here, you, for one, would have to be actively working with the local fisheries staff and have experience doing it. But then you'd also have to have a scientific collector's permit as well.
Okay.
So there are some hoops you have to jump through for that.
Yeah.
And because
for good reason.
Yep. Yeah. You don't want to be just willy-nilly giving people tags and needles and saying, here you go, just start throwing,
poking fish.
Yeah, right.
Start putting tags,
punching holes in fish, and
So there is a little bit of a learning curve and a process you have to go through to get to that point. And I can only think of 2 people right now that don't work with the department that have received the blessing to tag fish. So,
Matt, are you one of them?
I don't, and I don't want to be one of them.
I don't want that responsibility.
It's just, not that I shouldn't say I don't want to be, but like that's something left to professionals. It's above my pay grade.
Definitely. I like it, dudes. We're at an hour. I wanna wrap up with. Yeah, right. Flew by.
You weren't kidding when you said it goes fast.
It goes fast.
I want to wrap up with one question for Jake. Did Matt try to kill you ever with a suggested, like, outdoor rec trip? He's like, hey, this is a great spot. You should go here. I'm just curious.
No.
Okay. All right.
Not
good
yet.
That will come.
Matt's got like the best ideas for outdoor. They should be like races or like Tough Mudder challenges, like the Lazarski special or something, where you just.
I do some crazy stuff in the woods, man.
Yeah, I love it. I was on the receiving end. coupled your extreme ideas coupled with my need for large amounts of food and hoarding
And beer. Yeah.
Cooler of beer, a fully loaded cooler of beer in a canoe is not a smart idea.
I was gonna say, this must be the canoe trip.
Yeah.
But all right, so I asked Matt when he was on talking about like the idea of fitness for outdoor rec, being a parent. What does that look like for you? The idea behind it, your philosophy, maybe wishes or whatever.
Fitness in the outdoors.
Yeah,
to me, fitness and fishing is just getting, especially with muskie fishing, you got to be somewhat fit. Let me get a little closer. I can see your wanting to adjust things. It takes a lot of, I don't want to say muscle, but stamina to go out and huck muskie baits for 12 hours, let alone 3 hours.
Mm-hmm.
Just being up and being active and moving around. And like, you don't even have to, like, it can be more involved than just being in a boat. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you could go out and go kayaking to get to a spot, which I've done before, or be in a canoe. So it's more, I've heard you use this word before, but I can't remember what it was. It like functional
fitness.
Functional fitness.
Oh, yeah.
You're. I think you've said. I hear you say that all the time. It seems like, but that's exactly what it is. Is
I'm usually talking about my dumbbell beer.
That's exactly what. Well,
24 ounces.
But that's kind of how I envision it, and I would like said before, I'm super busy, but I used to be more fit. Mm-hmm. And I'd like to get to a point where I can get back to being more fit. And I want to get to a point where like I have to earn my right to go fishing by being more active before I hook the boat up, which that might be a little extreme, but just to kind of have the fishing be my reward for, getting out and running a couple miles or Like that's how serious I am about this stuff.
Way past me, man.
He's hard.
Well, I don't know. I
love it. There's no right or wrong answer.
As I get older, I'm starting to value the idea of being physically fit. As I look at like my family history, and my grandpa died from heart complications. My dad has heart problems. I'm probably going to have heart problems. I already know I have high blood pressure. Mm-hmm. So
5 kids, weird.
Yeah, exactly. No correlation whatsoever.
No, none.
Yep. So just putting more value on being fit and then using my passion as my reward for reaching that. So.
I love that, man. Yeah, I love that question because like with what I do for a living and loving the outdoor space so much, so many people are like, well, I don't want to exercise just for exercise. I'm like, yeah, me either. Like that's not why I do it. So it's I love listening to other people's like philosophy and ideas behind it because it is so vital to the human condition, especially if you want to be someone that's outside doing outdoor recreation, sharing that with their family, and something like muskie fishing, like you're talking about, super active. Like you need to be fit, muskie, salmon, anything like that. You're hooking those big fish. It is a workout. I say that in quotations because that's like real life work, right? I always tell people when they come in the gym, I'm like, this is fake work. Yeah. I'm coming up with like what I do for a living. I make fake work for you, and I do it in a semi-intelligent fashion, or I'm just mean and I haven't had enough coffee. Like that's what I do for a living. Like I'm super honest with people. Like I'll the super serious guys whose wives have made them come in because their dad had a heart scare, so they're like, you need to go fucking work out. I'm like, you're a mechanic. You do real, actual physical labor for a living. I make fake work in here. I like look at what you do, and I'm like, okay, we can do this fake work in here, and it's gonna benefit you and what you do for a living, and it's gonna benefit these other biomarkers we know are important for sustainable. I don't want to say like longevity, because I'm more concerned about like, are you functional? Are you do the shit you want to do, not just sit there for 90 years?
Yeah.
Like, wouldn't you rather like kick ass on repeat?
Be able to do it.
Yeah, for 75 or 80 versus, I just was there for 90. So that's the line I play. But anyways, taking that back into this Muskie League, when I asked you earlier like what the age demographic is, the last thing I want to talk about is the idea of R3. So recruitment, retention, reactivation in the outdoor space, right? Making sure we're getting a new generation, and that doesn't mean just kids, but like younger people who maybe didn't grow up in the outdoor space like we did, who didn't have, people like your dad, like finding that 20-year-old Matt that didn't grow up in the outdoors in fishing, and like, how do we get them in the group and make the barrier to entry super low so they can come into this Muskie group, be fired up, love it, and eventually start investing in their own equipment, bringing in other people. So from the Wilma group standpoint, has that group ever, because I think with Taps and Tackle and this group, you have a awesome platform to get more people, because I'm guessing a lot of people that come into Taps and Tackle don't fish or haven't fished.
Yeah, exactly. As far as like Muskie groups go, I think like if you were to take like a snapshot of all the Muskie groups in the state of Wisconsin, I feel as though, and maybe I'm incorrect, but a lot of them got started in the 80s, late 80s, early 90s. And there's just that generation of people that started those is getting older now. So there weren't a lot of, you call it new blood or whatever, but there wasn't a lot of young people coming in. And that's kind of where our group was a little bit different, where we do have a lot of kids in that low 20s. I don't say kids, people in the low 20s, that are joining the club and doing a lot. UWSP helps out a lot too, because you have a lot of conservation, outdoors minded people that go to school here. So that makes it available to them as well. So
hell yeah, I love it. Is there do you have like a specific plan for any of that R3 stuff in the Muskie fishing? Like, is there, so I think if you look at R3 like nationwide, like 55-ish is like the cutoff where you start to see a big drop in
decline.
People. And I imagine with Muskie fishing, it's got to be around there.
Probably earlier than that. I think you guys just get burnt out. Yeah.
Physical, burnt out.
Yep.
Is there mentoring that goes on in that, like specifically where you're trying to get new people in, working with the DNR?
Not for us particularly. We don't have a program set in place. Like, we just kind of started it, like we didn't really think that far ahead. It's definitely something we should be thinking about. Yeah. So
you're a community figure. You should.
Clearly, apparently. Why haven't I been doing my civic duty here?
Well, I'm gonna lean on you. I'm sure about you.
Yeah, I think it's just one of those things that's going to progress naturally. People want to get out. They want an excuse to get out, and a lot of it is just people haven't heard about it.
Yeah, they
don't know about the club. They don't know about what we do. They don't know that it's even an option.
Yeah,
they just think it's a bowling league or dart league, I guess. So
fair enough.
Yeah,
cool. Jake, R3. What are your thoughts, philosophies?
Oh, well, when I look at the clubs, especially like Wilma, the big thing that I think that they have going for them is like this sense of community that they bring with the club. And all it would take is, each one of the club members, or in any club, to just bring one person along and take them out one time, especially to like a league night or something like that, where it's or you're on a body of water where there's multiple boats from the club on that water body. Because there's times where we've gone and then, everyone meets up at the landing afterwards and talks about the night, and everyone, has a beer or whatever. And it just this kind of sense of community that's formed with that, I think is that's kind of like the key to this R3, because when you're by yourself, the retention aspect of that is probably not that high unless you're highly motivated. But when you have a group of people that are coming together, that kind of adds that peer pressure aspect. Not really peer pressure, but the sense of community that, hey, we're all doing this together, and it's my chance to get out and have 4 hours to hang out with these guys, and to not only hang out with someone, but to be out in nature and experience and see things that I wouldn't see if I was at home sitting on the couch.
Yeah. I want to go out now. I'm ready. What do you, unfortunately, I don't get to. I've got meetings and other sadness. What do you guys want to end with? What are your concluding thoughts? Call to action, other than go to the bottle stop?
Go to the bottle stop today at like 1 o'clock, maybe 2.
It's about when I'll be there, the usual.
Yeah.
Closing thoughts.
I don't know.
Yeah.
We have a meeting May 5th.
May 5th, Wilma meeting.
Yep, Pifner Park.
Is that new people, new peeps?
Everybody,
show up? Everybody?
Yep. That's our one meeting, which I know you talked about, like you wanted to be more active. I have a problem having meetings about fishing when I could actually be fishing, though. So we try to have one meeting a year.
There's no reason you couldn't have a meeting out while you're fishing.
Yep. So we have one meeting a year, which is May 5th this year. It's at the Pifner building. And that's sign up. There's always a speaker. Actually, usually 2 speakers. It's just everybody gets together. That's that sense of community.
There's a raffle as well.
Raffle
and drinks.
Yeah, there's some beers,
some hot dogs.
Free hot dogs.
I'm there. Sign me up.
You're limited to 8 hot dogs.
when we stop, what was the bar up by Digman's? Pea
Patch.
Pea Patch. Like all you can eat fish fry on the menu.
How did you do that?
I'm just to the waitress. I'm like, so how does the unlimited fish fry thing work? Can I just order ahead? She looked at me. I'm like, well, how many are in a thing? I'm like, just triple that. We'll start there. Perfect. This is a great fish fry.
Yeah,
great fish
it's a good
fry.
place.
Great place. So I recommend that. That's my concluding thought. Go there when you're up northern Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Other than that, thanks for coming on, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Bam.